Welcome to this series of interviews. This is the second in a series of interviews where I'm talking to people who've experienced some kind of change in their life and trying to find out a bit more about how it affected them, how they dealt with it, and what effect it's having on them now. So welcome, Katie. Would you like to say a little bit about yourself to start off with?
Thanks, Hilary. It's a pleasure to join you. A little bit about me. Well, I am a mum of a daughter who's just started university. I live in Gloucestershire, and I'm a virtual assistant working for lots of different people, but particularly you lovely lot.
Thank you. I didn't pay her to say that. So Katie, tell us about the change that you're going to talk about today. What happened in your life?
Yes, so this was actually something that to a certain extent I'd been planning for a while. So back in 2000, I was delighted to find that I was pregnant for the first time. We'd been married since 1996. So we'd enjoyed each other's company and made the most of dual income and no kids. And we're delighted to find out that I was pregnant and was due my pride and joy in August 2001.
And what happened next?
So a very normal pregnancy, really straightforward, super healthy, no signs of anything to be concerned about at all. Very normal scans, a 40-week period of being pregnant, and literally on the eve of the end of the 40 weeks, I went into labour. I had quite a long and drawn out labour, which was fairly horrendous in itself. But the resulting little bundle of joy was not quite the little bundle of joy that we had expected. Wow. Our darling daughter was born with some very unusual and very rare qualities, and a syndrome that not even to this day many people have heard about. So a huge change in literally a very short period of time.
I imagine. And was it apparent immediately?
It was. We were very lucky in the fact that we had Serena at the John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford. And being a world-renowned teaching hospital, of course, the consultancy team are extraordinarily well versed in all sorts of very unusual births. And we were lucky enough that we had a consultant who had seen a baby being born with a similar thing, but in Italy some years previously, so not even in the UK.
And so, did they break the news straight away? And
it was such an extraordinary set of circumstances. So because she was born ultimately by emergency cesarean, I was obviously slightly out of it. I relaxed as soon as I heard her cry. She was very briefly sort of shown at me, a bit like the sort of Lion King extract, over the curtain, and then scooched away with the midwife saying, "Don't worry, they're just sort of checking her over. There are a couple of things that they're not sure about." Mark was then sort of ushered out of the labour room while I was being sort of put back together. I then eventually found myself on a ward with Mark, but still no news of Serena and no sight of my baby and no cuddle or anything like that. And it took us a while to sort of actually get hold of somebody who could sort of say, "No, she's fine and she's now in special care, and we'll get you down to see her as soon as we can." But it was a very protracted, it felt like forever. And because, of course, I'd had a cesarean, I couldn't actually get up and walk down to Skiboo and find her. So it was a really frustrating, terrifying few hours before I actually got to see her, because until I felt that until I'd seen her, I couldn't make any judgments. it was all very well and good, the doctor saying, she's got this, but she's fine. And until I actually had hold of her myself, I just didn't know. And it was the most extraordinary few hours. And then, of course, Mark was sent home. Mark was told to go home. I needed to recover from the cesarean, and eventually they would reconnect me and my baby and my husband at some point the following day.
That must
I
have
didn't
been
like
really
that
hard.
very much.
No, that's not what you expect a birth to be like, do you?
Not at all. It could not have been more unexpected. There's no history in either of our families of any complications at all. We're extremely fortunate that, we have a really healthy kind of genetic history, I guess. So to have had a very normal pregnancy and then to be hit with something that was completely unexpected was really quite terrifying. And I think, funnily enough, although the doctors were ultimately absolutely incredible with us, in that very short window, sort of post-birth to lying in the recovery ward, they were really poor in terms of their communication and just information share. And actually, that's really all I needed. I just needed information. Was she okay? Where was she in special care? Was she in intensive care? All those sort of bits and pieces that I literally had no answers to. And after, I think it was 5 hours, I managed to find a nurse, because I think I'd become a bit of a pain on the old button. And I managed to find a nurse who very sweetly put me in a wheelchair and took me down to her. And there she was, just as pink and healthy as you would expect a newborn baby at 40 weeks to be born. She was a good weight and a really good size, but she definitely had some abnormalities. She had club feet on both feet, so both of her sort of big toes touched into her ankles, so they were quite severe. She had webbed fingers on both hands. She also had a very, very small lower jaw, which was considerably sort of short and set back. And then within her mouth, she had a number of issues. So a very, very small tongue, a very deep, not a cleft palate, but a very deep palate. So the initial problems were really to do with feeding and her inability to suck. But in terms of health, she was absolutely healthy.
So what were you feeling at that point?
It was a mixture. I think I was terrified as to what was going to happen in the short term. Could she survive? I was also very much of the opinion that I had been blessed, actually. I slightly felt as if somebody upstairs had decided that I and Mark, as a couple, were capable of looking after a small baby that would need considerably more attention than perhaps one that had been born normally. And I think there was a huge amount of determination in me that suddenly came from nowhere, literally came from nowhere. I've always been fairly single-minded, but I remember being struck with this power of determination that I would do everything and anything within my power to ensure that she got everything that she needed to succeed in life. And that stuck with me forever. That really has stuck with me forever. But yes. Initially, there was that sort of absolutely terrified that she wasn't going to survive. Once I sort of kind of came to understand that she was going to be okay, with this sort of overwhelming feeling of being blessed with having a baby of that nature, and this resolve and determination to ensure that she absolutely was going to have the best of everything.
That's an absolutely amazing reaction to have, because it could have been so different, couldn't it?
Completely.
You could have collapsed. You could have gone into a little heap.
I think we were very lucky because the hospital, no doubt, were amazing. Initially, perhaps lacking, but when you actually get to see those nurses in full flow in special care, they are extraordinary. They have knowledge and experience and confidence that you just won't experience anywhere else. And I think I fed a lot of them around me. I remember particularly Serena was about 3 days old, and on top of everything else, I'd managed to get an infection as well. So I had become quite poorly, but I had religiously made sure that during the day I was in Skiboo when they were feeding her, because they had to tube feed her. And there was a lovely Irish nurse there who would have been, I suppose, probably in her early 50s, but she was senior, and she had clearly been around the world and back again and seen everything and anything. And while Serena was being nose fed, and I had asked if I could change the tubes, she came up and she said, "I think I've got the solution for you. I think I found a bottle that you can actually use to feed her yourself." And this woman, just with that one little snippet of really practical solution, actually made me realize that anything was achievable, that Serena could have a normal life. And that really bolstered my confidence when that feeling of, I will ensure that she gets everything that she needs to have a really good quality of life, was triggered, and then by me and my thoughts, but really emphasized and sort of underpinned by what this nurse had said, because I knew that there would be a solution to everything. Actually, there would be a solution, and that confidence came really from the people who were around me at the time.
That's also really fascinating, isn't it? Because sometimes you don't need a lot of help.
No.
You need one or two people who look like role models, who are calm, reassuring, and just give you that little bit of help that you need at that point, just to carry you through, as you say, to give you confidence.
Absolutely.
Which I'm sure, what has been tested over the years. Looking back, what would you say to somebody else in a similar sort of situation, or somebody facing that kind of change that just comes out of the blue?
I think that actually most people, when they are tested, find a reserve that they didn't know that they had until they are confronted by something that significant. There's that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I actually really believe in that. I think as individuals, we are incredibly powerful, and I think we are very, very capable. I think trust your instincts, because I think we are very capable of slightly ignoring what our heart is saying to us sometimes, because we don't think that it's necessarily very practical, or it might not feel like it's the right thing to do. But I think instinct really got Mark and I through. And actually, I would also say rely on the people who are closest to you too, because actually they tend to be enormous bolsters. They hold you up. I mean, I was not only lucky in the fact that I have the most lovely husband, but his sister is a pediatric nurse. And without Fiona, I think I would have found some of the medical stuff that we were dealing with quite difficult, because it's not my area at all. And Fiona was just fantastic in translating such a lot of the sort of medical stuff into something that I could completely understand.
That's fantastic. I think all of that is absolutely great advice for somebody in that situation. And as you say, I think very often we are much stronger than we think we are. And just to finish, where is Serena now?
Well, my little Serena has gone 365 degrees and is now training to be a nurse at Oxford Brookes University, and will be doing a large amount of her placement and practical experience at the John Radcliffe Hospital where she was born.
Oh, isn't that lovely? That is just absolutely
incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is incredible.
Yeah, that's a great end to the to this little bit of the story. Anyway,
Yeah.
I could listen to lots more, but thank you so much, Katie. That's been really, really inspiring. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure, Hilary. Thank you.